Hi, welcome to Astro-Action. This video is part 2, a continuation of the video I made a few weeks ago in the middle of November concerning December 7th, 2024, a day that will live in infamy. I'm going to add a few things to that, and then we're going to look at what has actually been going on in the week following December 7th, 2024, since I'm making this video on December 12th. And the news is just absolutely insane right now. So, a quick recap of the video that I made a few weeks ago, taking a look at the very interesting astrology coming up for December 7th, 2024. So the first thing that struck me that Mars was going to be stationary retrograde on that date. This happens every 2 years. The planet Mars, the planet of war, self-assertion, aggression, the general sort of masculine archetype, appears to stop in its path across the stars and begin to move backwards along the stars in a retrograde period for about 3 months. And this happens only every 2 years as the Earth moves closer in its orbit to align with Mars. And at that moment, the day of the stationary, I emphasized how the archetype of Mars is somewhat released from space and time, and the archetype is just fully experienced in our consciousness. It sort of rings out through our conscious awareness. Everything Mars. It's very powerful. There are examples of famous people who were born at a stationary period, a stationary day of a certain planet, and that planet is extremely influential in their chart, like a former CIA director is one example, when Pluto was stationary retrograde. This is decades ago, so his name escapes me, but so if you're born, or anyone is born around a retrograde or stationary, whether it's stopping going forward or stopping going direct, extremely influential. Now, this was happening on December 7th, 2024, which was the birth date, the yearly birth date or solar return of the attack on Pearl Harbor. I remembered immediately, December 7th, that's the day that will live in infamy. December 7th, 1941, when Japan initiated a sneak attack on the naval base, U.S. naval base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The following day, Roosevelt made a speech and declared it to be a date that will live in infamy. And as a response to that, the United States, that was formerly resistant to jumping into World War II, had to jump into World War II. And I won't go into all the details of that history, of course. But a monumentous date there. So I thought the significance of Mars stationary in a fire sign in Leo on the same date as Pearl Harbor had to have some astrological significance that I didn't see anybody else talking about. So if we take the 3 charts, which I did, the United States natal chart, put it at the center, which is from July 4th, 1776, and then put the Pearl Harbor chart around that, 1941, and then put that's December 7th, 1941, then put December 7th, 2024 around that, you see a very interesting triple alignment happening, as you can see in this chart that I brought up last time, briefly. In the 8th house here, particularly, you will see the North Node, which is sort of a magnetic point of destiny, let's just say, where things speed up, things happen very quickly. It is the path that you were to walk, for example. The U.S. has it at 6 degrees Leo. and it's the node of the moon where the moon moves into the northern part of its orbit. In 1941, December 7th, Pluto had entered Leo for the first time in the United States history, and the first time in 245 years or so. And it had just crossed that north node. Pluto, that's where we get the word plutonium from, and it is the archetype of a titanic power that just emerges, and explodes from underneath, a sort of a hidden desire for power, and often has very traumatic effects. It is the Lord of Death. It is the higher octave of Mars. So it's very similar to Mars in terms of its connection with deep, powerful desires. Whereas Mars is more overt and spontaneous and just out in the open and direct. Pluto is a little bit more, to say the least, hidden and sort of scheming until the right moment. Much more calculated. Now, at the birth date, which happens every year, December 7th, but this particular birthday in 2024, December 7th, Mars has also moved into Leo, and is sitting like nearly exactly at that same point. So you have, as it stops with this powerful stationary moment that it has and starts to move backwards. In a sense, triggering this whole configuration of the 1776 North Node Leo, the Pluto in Leo 1941, and December 7th, 2024. The planet of that outward direct aggression and violence, Mars, right on that same Pluto from 1941. So I thought that was very concerning. Now, in astrology, we have a thing called an orb, which pertains to, whether we count a degree to be exact or not. It's within so many degrees. We say it's sort of good enough, right? Because we're talking about 360 degrees of precision when it comes to astrology. And so we could say that, any days, a few days before December 7th, a few days after December 7th, there is, we could pretty much give it a week on either end at least, as this Mars stationary effect is really felt and, on a deep, very deep level throughout humanity. That's just December 7th is the exact date. It's stationary. It goes stationary. But what struck me was, how Pearl Harbor was a sneak attack, and there have been only 2 attacks on American soil in the history of the United States. They were, of course, the attack in Pearl Harbor and the attack in 9/11, 2001, World Trade Center, New York City. I needed to go research that chart a bit. And what I found was some pretty interesting connections between those 2 attacks astrologically. Well, so I'm going to show you this chart for that's the U.S. natal chart. So, well, let me start with. I'm gonna work my way to the 9/11 chart. So here's the July 4th, 1776 chart. We have Sagittarius rising 12 degrees here, which is the general personality of the chart. The United States is very much about optimism and expansion. It's very open to many people from all over the world. Bring us your poor and tired, huddled masses, a country of immigrants, but also a country of conflict, because Sagittarius is a sign of friction by fire. It's one of the 3 fire signs. Okay? But it deals with that it's rising, shows our inevitable entanglement with other foreign countries, let's just say. And also, interestingly, flight seems to come up a lot. The United States is where flight was invented. And Kitty Hawk by the Wright brothers, for example. But remember this degree right here on the left, 12 degrees of the 30 degrees, 12 degrees Sagittarius in 21 minutes. And then we see is it this one? Oh, how about this one? Okay. Now, in the Pearl Harbor chart, we have Sagittarius rising again, not that exact degree, but just remember the themes of flight, okay? And then I pointed out, the Sun was at 15 Sagittarius, Mercury at 7 Sagittarius, so a lot of Sagittarius going on here as well when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And it was attacked via the air, through flight. Okay. Now, we got 2 more charts to look at. And here's what gets interesting. I'm going to just bring up my chart for the attack on 9/11. Which I stored here somewhere very nicely a minute ago. Can't get out of the screen. Okay, well, let's get to the 9/11 chart. So the significant thing is that Pluto, which I've already described, is a very threatening and ominous planet in terms of mundane world astrology. Pluto was exactly at this degree of 12 degrees Sagittarius. Interesting. The Lord of death in the underworld, connected to flight somehow. Of course, you have foreign countries, but you have flight. And you have the horrible, horrific attack, 9/11. The same degree, Pluto was crossing the U.S. ascendant, an extremely huge event in the United States history, in the consciousness of America, and how it galvanized Americans to unify them, and sort of in a sense unified them towards this ascendant of this redefining who we were as a country. That's what the house number 1 is. It's identity. Very interesting. Now let's look at, so we got those 2 charts connected through the 12th degree. Then you have December 7th, 2024, and look what we have. I have it in this outer wheel here. Mercury is retrograding, and on December 7th, 2024, is at 12 degrees Sagittarius. So I'm looking at 4 charts now, and 3 out of the 4 charts have this degree, 12 degrees Sagittarius. Interesting. Now, many of you may not be familiar with this, but there is a book called the Astrological Mandala, which gives a symbol for every degree of the zodiac. 360 different symbolic phases. It's a must for all astrologers. It's actually hard to find these days. Fairly expensive, I believe. And it's a paperback. I won't get into the whole story of how this came about. But it was a set of symbols that was channeled by a psychic and was reinterpreted, sort of focused, sort of refined by the great humanist astrologer Dane Ridyar. So let's take a look at this degree. Now, if we read it as 12 degrees so many minutes, so we actually we would read it in the as Sagittarius 13 degrees. Let's see what these 3 out of 4 charts are emphasizing here through that Sagittarius 13 degrees. It's under the phase of collectivization and group solidarity, interestingly. So, Sagittarius 13 degrees is symbolized as a widow's past is brought to light. Keynote, the karma of past actions as it affects opportunities presented by a new cycle. So, and he gives a interpretation of this. It's basically about ghosts of the past that inevitably intrude. I want to just summarize it without reading it all. And the key word at the end, interestingly, I'll build up to it. This is the third stage of the sequence. Mankind is the, quote, widow, because our soon to be concluded Pisces age has buried most of the ideals it once revered and proclaimed. Yet the new age will have to deal with many oppressive ghosts. This is a symbol of retribution. So I think that was very interesting, the key word being retribution. Now, like I said, that degree shows up in 3 out of 4 of these charts. It's interesting how the United States ascending degree is that degree. It's like something that we must be aware of, the past movements and actions of the United States may inspire retribution in other countries or other powers around the globe. That is exactly what happened at 9/11 when Pluto crossed that degree. Okay. And now you have it here as well. Interesting. Could there be some resurging connection right now between the events of 9/11 and here in December 2024? Now let's find out. Let's see what has been going on in the news. So I got, now, the Pearl Harbor chart did have a lot of Sagittarius, a lot of emphasis on flight. Now remember, we have Pearl Harbor's attack through flight. 9/11 was an attack through the air as well. It's interesting because, the United States is extremely powerful because it's well defended, given that it's bordered by 2 gigantic oceans. It's very hard to attack. So that, attack through the air is actually where we're vulnerable. It's like the only way that we're vulnerable. Okay. So, shifting to the news. The news is just insane this week. Was there a sneak attack on December 7th, 2024? Thankfully, there was not. Are things on the world political stage incredibly tense and dangerous? Absolutely. And they have been for a while, granted. Have they ramped up? They certainly have been. And that's very typical of a Mars stationary, every 2 years. Mars went stationary retrograde when we entered Iraq back in the late 1990s, or right after 9/11 as well. But I've made a quick little list here of the things in the news that are just pretty noteworthy given this Mars retrograde effect and how it connects to all these charts. 1, an escalation of U.S.-Russia-Ukraine nuclear threat. That's been going on leading up to the war, leading up to December 7th because of the U.S. Missiles that were allowed to be used by the Ukrainians. Which has really put us on the edge of nuclear war, as Russia has, even Putin has been discussing this openly. Okay. But very closer to December 7th, within a few days, we have Syria overtaken by rebels. It's a possibility of the U.S. CIA involvement, so here we have the U.S. involved there. And Israel attacks them as well. It's possible that there's an Al-Qaeda member that is going to be one of the leaders. I mean, that's a real throwback, a real echo to 9/11. I saw somewhere someone saying that the CIA overturning a country. This is what created Al Qaeda and ISIS. So it's like, oh, here we go again, possibly. Um, and especially if it was a member of Al Qaeda who supposedly had like $100 million bounty on his head. He was on a wanted list. It was shown on the Jimmy Dore channel. That's the guy who's supposed to be actually taking over Syria. Okay. You have. Uh, I'm going to skip this one because this is the real humdinger, the real zinger. But let's talk about this for a minute. The CEO murder. The young man, Luigi Mangione, who has been caught very quickly. Now, what's interesting about this character is that here's this very intelligent uh, young man who comes from a very opulent background. It's like the news is just obsessed with him right now. To me, he just absolutely emulates the Mars and Leo archetype. There's murder and violence involved, retribution. Okay, that comes up strongly, by the way, the degree, 12 degrees. Um, there's some things that are, I mean, he's just very charismatic. There's so many people are just like fawning over him. He's like a really good looking guy. He's very much in shape. And he's being lauded as like a hero by so many people. He's a bit of some kind of Gen Z Robin Hood, versus the corrupt medical insurance system in corporate America. So that sort of propping him as some kind of hero, and this sort of how he's very Leo in that he sure didn't stay hidden for long, right? And in fact, I mean, he was caught a few days shortly after this in a McDonald's, and they're splashing up everything about his social media that they can find online, and yeah, it's just there's just so many Leo things about him, Mars and Leo things. Very masculine. It's very outgoing. He had a video ready to be played that says, if you see this video, I was caught, where he's going to explain everything, and he had this manifesto. So it's just very extroverted. It's very, it was like he was planning to be in the limelight. There's also a feature of this that I want to mention, which is like the Neptune and Pisces and Saturn and Pisces that we're still going through, which deals with, mental illness and drug addiction. And, I don't see many people talking about the possibility that he may have been affected by painkillers and such, since he apparently had back surgery. And here's a really cool astrological tie-in with that. Mars rules engines and things that go fast, cars. It also rules surgery, right? Think knives, things that cut, surgery, right? Leo rules the spine in the body. Each one of the 12 signs rules an area of the body. Here's a man who suffered from spinal surgery. He was reading books about that. He put a picture, an X-ray of the metal rods and such that were inserted into his back. And it was due to a surfing injury, which again is another very Leo type of thing, being out in the sun. His last address was in Hawaii. So out comes this vigilante Leo character, very youthful, very handsome, all that. It's just pretty wild. I think I've said enough about that. A couple other things that have happened very close to this December 7th thing: an earthquake, a 7.0 earthquake right off the coast of California, which there was a tsunami warning about. Here around December the 10th or so, there has been a big fire in Malibu, which I guess happens all the time. But these are just kind of typical things. Now, this is what I want to propose. Could it be possibly that we are encountering a third Pearl Harbor. You had Pearl Harbor, the attack of Pearl Harbor. You had 9/11, which was like a second Pearl Harbor. And now you have December 7th, 2024. And are we experiencing a third Pearl Harbor? Well, what is this all about? The biggest story in the news that's very disconcerting, very concerning, is this.
Hill, Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey told me this.
Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down.
And he got Washington, D.C.'s attention. Moments ago, here's the Pentagon responding.
There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
You know what there also is none of? Information coming out of the feds and the White House. And now you have a gap. And millions of people on the East Coast wondering, what's happening in the skies above? Another Republican congressman summed up how a lot of Americans are feeling right now as he tried to get some answers from the FBI.
You're telling me we don't know what the hell these drones are in New Jersey are? Is that correct?
That's right.
It's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. That's madness that we don't know what these drones are.
That is Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez. He is with me live now. Congressman Gonzalez, is this a national security threat?
It is, or it could be, very likely maybe. I did have a conversation this morning with a high-level law enforcement official where we talked about the possibility of a mothership being there with the drones. I think the fact that we don't have definitive answers is worrisome. Sitting on the Appropriations Committee, I often ask, where is our money going? And then the other question is, if we don't know the answers, why? And when I got a response yesterday that said, you know, the FBI only has a budget of $500,000 and Customs and Border Protection only has a budget of $0 for counter drones, this is a problem.
Well, look, you want to talk about budgeting. Think about the budget and resources among all those municipalities, in particularly New Jersey, near where the incoming president, number 47 for this nation, lives. I mean, can you imagine what those sheriff's departments and police officers are going through? They're having to talk with the public that is not informed on something that some of these drones have been reported to be the size of an SUV, Congressman.
You're right, and these threats are very real. You know, here we have, it's not as if a what if could happen to President Trump. This has already happened, and other threats have been circulated. The Iranians are surely always up to no good. It's just we have to keep our eye on the ball, and ultimately, the American people deserve to know what is happening, where their taxpayers' dollars going, and if they're not getting answers, well, how do we put resources towards making sure law enforcement has every instrument possible to keep us safe, and also, more important, probably ultimately important, keep the president of the United States or the incoming president of the United States, Trump, equally as safe.
Look, scientists are telling.
So extremely concerning. A big deal. If you haven't seen any of the videos shot of the objects flying around New Jersey, you got to check it out. It's insane. This is not a UFO channel, so I'm not going to, go into a lot of it. But that shows you the level of concern. And is it even, are they actually drones? What else could they be?
Let's put the drone issue to one side for a moment. Let's not ignore the fact that there clearly is still, separately from the drone issue, there have been for many months now, and we've reported on this in Reality Check, Anomalous objects clearly identified as anomalous by pilots and military personnel operating over very sensitive military facilities, particularly in the United States. And one of the reports that we did was reports of anomalous objects being seen by locals over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. And the Air Force, of course, has persisted in maintaining that these are drones. But not one shred of evidence has been presented to supply any proof at all that these are drones. In fact, the Pentagon has conspicuously failed to provide any proof at all to back up its claim that these objects are drones. You might recall a few weeks ago I did an interview with the Tedesco brothers, John and Jerry Tedesco, who do a lot of research off Long Island, and they are, I think, probably foremost as technical experts in an understanding of anomalous objects that are being seen on very sensitive air routes in and out of JFK Airport coming into New York. And they're aware of a lot of the orbs that are now being seen in and around New Jersey, off the Long Island coast, and they continue to maintain that these objects are not drones. They do not comply. They're not consistent with any known drone technology. They do move in anomalous ways. And what they're seeing and recording on their hyperspectral cameras and their numerous other sensor systems that they've paid for themselves, they're not US government funded, they are raising a very serious question. And I note, as this goes to air, it's just been reported on NBC that the objects are again being seen over New Jersey this evening. And that's very interesting because the FBI is now involved. The FBI has approached John and Jerry Tedesco, and I know that they are taking an interest in the New Jersey sightings as well. There are some very sensitive homes under New Jersey, including, I think, one associated with the incoming president. I wonder if that's just a coincidence.
Okay, so there you have it. Could this date that might live in infamy, December 7th, 2024, at least the days in and around that period where Mars stationary retrograde at this very sensitive point, which echoes the attack of Pearl Harbor, which connects also to the attack on 9/11, all this tied together with the United States natal chart. Could it possibly be something that amounts to a third Pearl Harbor attack, even if it's some kind of incredibly advanced drone technology off the coast, Iranian mothership? That's just insane. Or some kind of extraterrestrial threat, which has been building and building. But the news cycle is just going mad with all this stuff. An amazing amount of just incredibly dramatic stories going on. And, I don't stick my neck out and make big predictions, but my instinct was to make that video a few weeks ago. And I'm feeling pretty vindicated that there is an awful lot of insane, intense, threatening, violent activity going on all over the globe. I couldn't even get to all of it. Okay? Anyway, I hope you can share this video and share my crazy AI picture that I concocted at Kling AI, showing the God of War on a lion for Leo with some flying saucers that he's doing battle with. Look forward to some more really cool thumbnails and such. And like, subscribe, share. Hope to get this channel really rolling. Improve production values, etc., etc. But a lot of food for thought here. Like, subscribe, share. Have a great weekend. Hold on to your seats.